Coming up, South Carolina must win. We discuss Off the Hook Sports.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of my personal pet peeves has to be a must-win game that's not really an elimination game, but that's kind of what college football is all about. So this is a must-win game for Tennessee against South Carolina, especially after dropping their contest versus the Gators, and you've got these teams called Georgia and Alabama that are coming up that will most likely be favorites against Tennessee. So we have a lot going on in the program. It's a Football Friday with Fred. Boy, you're going to enjoy that. You always do. We're going to give some some prop bets and see how he does on that. Also, we will look back at the Vols history versus South Carolina. There's some shocking upsets that have derailed potential fantastic seasons for both teams. Also, Jay Phillips will join us. He covers Columbia, covers South Carolina for 107.5 The Zone, the Cumulus station there. So we're looking forward to that. But as I mentioned, it's a Football Friday with Fred. How about Rick Barnes turning up a commitment? Doesn't matter. He's 70 years old, but he's got a 4-star player at the helm. So here we go, a Football Friday. Want to hear you from the message board. How confident do you feel about this game against South Carolina? I've felt incredibly confident the whole time. Even into the offseason, I still feel confident now, having seen both the teams for about a month. But Caleb, when we talk about must wins, I think that term is way overused, but it's a must win for Tennessee if they want to stay in any sort of championship hunt. They have to beat South Carolina at home, and Vegas says they should at about 11.5.
Yeah, and more than anything, it's a must win for Joe Milton. I mean, let's just be honest. It's Tennessee going into the bye week. It's what I talked about yesterday. I said from the start they should save Nico because he's not yet ready, but that's you can't defend that decision if Joe Milton loses this game with 2 weeks off. It's going to be a brutal 2 weeks at that point, and then you start to think, well, maybe you have a chance to be better with Nico in the game this year, and you can't afford 6-6 or 7-5, or dare I say, Dave, if you lose to South Carolina, 5-7 is on the table at that point.
On the table, I don't think likely, but on the table. If it ever got to the point where I think that Josh Heupel thought he was pushing a 6-6, I think that there would be a quarterback change. I've said before, it's going to take a lot for a quarterback change. It's going to take either an injury or an incredibly bad run by Joe Milton. And I haven't seen anything close to that yet. So here we go. Good morning to you and yours. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you haven't set your notifications on, do that as well. If you're listening into an audio podcast format, please give us a review. We greatly appreciate those. It helps us get out in front of more people. It's time for today's tough question, and it is now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, I'm going to get this out of the way, Caleb. Today's tough question is not about me. It's not about the fact that I have a book signing Friday afternoon with Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the 1998 Tennessee National Championship Vols. That is not what it's about. But we would love you to join us at 3 to 6 from Hound Dogs, where Fred White and I will have a signing there, which is next to Cedar Springs Baptist Church on Kingston Pike. We will be there from 3 to 6 signing books, so looking forward to that. It's not about that, Caleb. It's not about me. You know this is not about me. This entire endeavor is not about me. Here's today's tough question, brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate. And again, not about me. But this week, called Champions Week, is it disrespectful to the 1998 National Championship team for it just to not be called the 98 Champions Week? This is some sort of champions conglomeration that I guess is going to salute the 2001 SEC East Division champions as well. I don't know who all they're celebrating, but they're going to celebrate all kinds of teams, and I think other sports as well. I think it's neat. I think this would be a good annual tradition if you wanted to, but you don't have Champions Weekend unless this is 25 years after Tennessee goes 13-0 and wins a national title in the most important sport at the University of Tennessee, and that's football. So to call it anything else, and I guess they thought I had Celebrate 98 trademarked, which I do. So to call it anything else, Caleb, to me is a little bit disrespectful to the 98 team. And I've talked to some guys on the 98 team, and they're having their own get-together around Texas A&M, and they're going to do the school university function thing today, as a matter of fact, and into the weekend. But is it disrespectful for it to just not be about the 98 football team?
Yes. Now let's clear up what this actually is. So this is actually, to be fair, their second annual Champions Weekend, and they celebrate champion milestones. So anybody that's won a championship, the 10-year anniversary, the 20-year anniversary, 25, 30, 40, 50 of anybody that won a championship. And it's SEC or national. I'm with you. I'm fine with it with an annual Champions Weekend. But you need a weekend that for football season that solely acknowledges the 1998 national championship team from 25 years ago. Okay. Now, if you want to just acknowledge national champions from Champions Weekend with 10, 20, 25, 50, I'm fine with that. But quite honestly, Dave, this is disrespectful, not just to the 98 football team, but think the women's basketball team, 97, 98, that went 39-0. They have to share this with the 2002, 2003 women's basketball team that was SEC regular season champions. Now, no disrespect for that 2002, 2003 women's team, but should they deserve to share the same court or field as the 97-98 women's basketball team that's hailed as the greatest team of all time?
No, and shouldn't that celebration be during a Lady Vols basketball game?
Exactly.
This is a football event, and if you want to do a Champions Week in the 24th and 26th anniversary of these teams, and your thoughts on the message board, and we'll get to them, like and subscribe. If you want to do that on those years and you want to include all champions, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But this one in particular is the 25th anniversary of the 1998 National Championship team. It should be all about them. They should be able to run through the T if they want to. It just simply does not happen. It didn't happen in 47 years, going back to 1951. That's not the modern era of college football, nor the modern era of college athletics. So give me any two championships of any sport. You can go track, you can go women's basketball. You can't go men's basketball unless you want to talk about like winning the SEC East regular season. You can go any other sport. You give me two champions that you would trade for this one championship, 13-0, 1998 National Championship team. There aren't two that even compare to this one.
There aren't 10. This championship, 1998.
It sounds crazy like you said that for effect, but it's really the truth.
It's the most important championship Tennessee's ever won in any sport. And it outweighs every other championship combined. Okay. It's not close, guys. It's not, you're right. Now, yes, Tennessee Tennessee fans, the old timers, like, no, we're 6-time national champs. 1938, 1940, 1950, 1951, and 1967. 67 was retroactive. The other 4, as you said, were before the modern era. So let's put it this way, Dave. No championship pre-integration outweighs championships post-integration. Do we agree on that?
I would agree on that.
Like, not even close. Massive asterisk pre-integration. And so the 98 championship outweighs the other 5 Tennessee football national championships. It's the most important championship in the university's history. They deserve a weekend to themselves. And you're right, particularly for football season. They should get a weekend to themselves I think they did get one on the 10-year anniversary. I hope they got one on the 20-year anniversary. They should get one on the 25, on the 30, on the 40, on the 50, and just the 98 team. Nobody else. They deserve that much, okay? I do know this. In 2005, you were probably covering it. It's funny, Tennessee lost to Georgia that day, but it was the day Tennessee lost to Georgia in 05. They welcomed back the 85 team by themselves. They didn't welcome back the 65 team or the 35 team or the 45 team. No, it was the 85 team. That team didn't even win a national title. And they were welcomed back because of what they accomplished. The 98 team should get a weekend to themselves every 5 years, I would almost say, because of this.
I agree. And here's what I think, Caleb. I believe that there's a separation from the past on purpose, that this program wants to be seen as new and innovative and different and not just the traditional aid program that it was before. And I think Philip Fulmer's role as athletic director is a factor in that. I think they want to distance themselves from that. And Philip Fulmer probably wants to distance himself from that as well. It was not his greatest time at the helm. We can both agree with that. And I feel like every time I see a record put out by Tennessee in their sports information department, it's kind of a little bit with a caveat. We had one come up last week, didn't we? Where we had the longest run in by a quarterback in Tennessee football history when it was Joe Milton going 81 yards. Well, technically, if you go back to a totally different offense, you could say Hank Laricella, right? I mean, there was a gray area there that wasn't pointed out in the release by the University of Tennessee. I believe firmly, and I can tell you the players believe this, the former players from the 98 team, they believe this school is ready to move on without them. And I think this is just another indication of that. So it should be the 98 championship celebration. They should be able to run through the T. And I'll add something else that I've said for a number of years. You win a championship at a school, you should have a statue. Philip Fulmer should have a statue regardless of what happened as AD. The statue should have already been up. He should have a statue just like Robert Neyland, the general at the University of Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. Period. End of discussion. I feel very strongly about that.
Well, Neyland does have a statue, but yeah.
Neyland does. I'm saying Fulmer should, just like Neyland.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, Alabama does that. Every Alabama coach has a statue, and they've had more coaches win national titles than Tennessee has. I mean, Gene Stallings has a statue for that 1 year in 92. And I'm with you. You should wait. Whatever you think about Fulmer, he did win a national title. Now, you want to make statues for other reasons? Fine, but national titles put you in a certain level of lore. And Tennessee should absolutely, the 98 team should be getting more respect than they get. I think, look, but Tennessee has a habit of not doing well with honoring certain team success relative to individuals. And what I mean by that is they'll sometimes honor players from a little more from less successful teams. And I'm not mentioning Peyton Manning because Peyton Manning was just was the best, is in the conversation for best of all time at his position. But Dave, I'll give you one. Like, let's just throw these two out. He was better raw talent, but Leonard Little versus Sean Ellis. I feel like Leonard Little's more beloved than Sean Ellis, but Sean Ellis was as productive at Tennessee as Leonard Little was.
Well, there's a reason, partly because of that, because Leonard Little was playing middle linebacker, which nobody can explain to me still to this very day. Let's turn to basketball.
No, but Sean Ellis was also better in the NFL than Leonard Little was. Even though Leonard Little was good, Ellis actually had a better NFL career slightly.
Leonard Little
Made more Pro
also had
Bowls.
some, yeah, but Leonard Little also had some serious issues with the driving thing. So
Okay.
I mean that's a factor. I think he was suspended for a number of games, and that so there were a lot of issues going on there. I like seeing right there that Jesse says, "Go Cox." Here we go. We've gotten a lot of South Carolina fans, and we enjoy that. Robert says, "Good morning, Vol Nation." SC Scout guy says the Tennessee 2021 cheerleading squad won the national championship. I hope they honor them. Thank you. I appreciate that from a South Carolina fan who's saying, man, they deserve their own weekend, and they do, and they're going to have it themselves privately for the A&M weekend. And that's something they're going to do for themselves. I asked Philip Fulmer on our podcast, and that's brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, the original cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT to receive some free swag with that order, available most anywhere in the United States. I asked him if I could be invited to the team only functions to celebrate 98, and I got a negative. I got a stiff arm right to the face mask. That wasn't happening. Today's tough question brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Real estate experts with over 4 decades combined experience in Tennessee. Best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. No championship to celebrate when it comes to the basketball team, but you have a commitment to celebrate, Caleb. And I know you have strong feelings on Rick Barnes. I have some pretty strong feelings as well as to what he can achieve and how long he'll be around and what should be acceptable. But let's start the conversation with Tennessee's newest commitment. What can you tell me about the latest hoopster?
Bishop Boswell comes out of North Carolina. He is very much a Rick Barnes type of player. He's a 6'4" combo guard, great defense, great passing, and he scores by driving to the basket. Now, I think that's a little outdated way of looking at how you win basketball games today. I think being able to stretch the court is more important. But Rick Barnes has gone in the transfer portal and added players who can stretch the court. So I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think this is indicative that Rick Barnes isn't at least willing to adapt still. This is a good pickup for Tennessee in 2024. It's their first 2024 pickup. He's a 4-star across the board, elite combo guard. And with Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovi out of eligibility after this year, the perfect guy to come in that you could see kind of make an impact, at least from a depth perspective, long-term. So I think Tennessee should be happy about that. And he's going to be the first commit whose first year on campus will be when Rick Barnes is 70. And I wanted to bring this up because Rick Barnes is turning 70 next year and his contract runs until he's 74. But Dave, I look at Rick Barnes. I mean, some people are 70 going on 100 and some people are 70 going on 50. And I feel like Rick Barnes is 70 going on 50. I mean, he doesn't come across to me as somebody who's turning 70 next year.
No, I agree. And you could say the same thing about Nick Saban. He just does not look nearly as old as he is. Now, you'd like to have the success that Saban had with Rick Barnes, but you haven't. Who were the other schools involved in the newest Tennessee basketball commitment?
I know Wake Forest was involved, which, look, it's good for Tennessee to beat out Wake Forest. I'm pulling it up now. I do believe Villanova was involved, which, 2-time national champion. That's a good team to beat out. So no shame in that. And so there were a couple of schools. North Carolina schools were definitely targeting him. So this is definitely overall a good pickup for Tennessee. I'm pulling up the other schools now because I had already forgotten them, but he definitely said that he connected with Rick Barnes. Oh, Xavier in Missouri, he was eyeing, and Missouri had a good start to the season last year, and Georgia too. So, not amazing schools that are like loading up on national champions. If Xavier, Wake Forest, and Missouri and Georgia are your top other schools, but all schools with coaches on the rise, particularly Missouri, which had a great first year last year under their new head coach. And so I got to be honest, I think this is not a bad – what it really shows is Rick Barnes, he's beating out youthful coaches for top-notch recruits. And, the young coach that has a splash first year always does well on the trail right after that. And so to beat him out says a lot about Barnes.
Well, and as I brought up, we've gotten a lot of South Carolina fans because it's Tennessee, South Carolina week. So SC Scout Guy weighs in on Rick Barnes from his South Carolina perspective. I will say this again. You don't realize how lucky you are to have Rick Barnes. SC has been to 5 tournaments in 50 years. I would love to have Rick Barnes as our coach, which leads me to the question, what school other than Kentucky wouldn't take Rick Barnes right now? Is it
Kansas.
Auburn? I was talking SEC schools.
Oh, SEC schools.
Auburn, Bruce Pearl.
Yeah.
Who else
Auburn, Bruce
would
Pearl.
not trade their head coach for Rick Barnes and the stability that he would bring with the backdrop that other than Kentucky, football is king and basketball just has to be respectable?
I think Arkansas is pretty happy with Eric Musselman. I mean, they might start the year number 1 right now. So I think Arkansas is pretty happy. Look, whatever you think about how last year went down, Alabama's pretty satisfied with Nate Oates at this point.
Oh my gosh. See, I would disagree there. I thought there were too many off-court issues and guns.
I'm not saying what would be the right move. I think Alabama is just. I think the fans are happy with it, and so it's what with the fans and they're happy with the success. And look, Eric Musselman and Nate Oates have more fun teams to watch. Rick Barnes teams are not fun to watch. Let's call it what it is. They are boring to watch, and it doesn't go far in the NCAA tournament. And that's the SC Scout Guy. I get what you're saying, but at least even with Frank Martin, y'all got a Final Four. Rick Barnes can barely get out of the first round of the NCAA tournament and always loses to a lower seed because of his obsessive nature of defense. Now, I will say, we got to point this out, Dave. Rick Barnes' best accomplishment, I don't know if you saw this because we're talking about celebrating champions. Tennessee has removed the NIT banners from Thompson Bowling, the Food City Arena.
They had NIT banners up. I've been to countless practices and games there, and I did not know they even had NIT banners.
Yes, they had NIT banners.
Final Four, Elite 8 NIT banners, or is it winning the championship NIT banners?
It's going to the NIT banners. They had going to the NIT banners, and they have finally gotten rid of those.
Okay, well, we're gonna turn into some hoops as we're gonna bring Fred White in here. A couple of comments on the message board. Jesse Sewell says we're going to learn a lot about both football teams. Which team has really improved over the first 4 weeks? Which team is putting it together in all 3 phases of the game? Sounds a little coach speaky, Jesse, but I'm going to agree with you in that I don't know that we know much about Tennessee at all. They played 3 preseason games, essentially. They played a Florida team that I still do not believe is very good. I think Tennessee had a bad day in Gainesville. So we'll know a lot more about these 2 football teams after Saturday. I truly believe we'll know a pecking order that right now is still pretty unclear in my mind.
We'll know more about Tennessee. We know about South Carolina. I mean, the book is out on South Carolina at this point. They've been tested. To their credit, we'll know more about Tennessee specifically. And we know where South Carolina is weak. And let's just say it. If Joe Milton struggles with if Joe Milton can't get to 250, 300 yards against this pass defense, Dave, you got a big problem, don't you?
But yeah. I mean, you potentially could have big problems across the board in several different areas with Tennessee's football team. If Cooper Mays is not back on Saturday, and I've heard indications that he will be from different various media outlets, but if he's not back, how concerned are you still about the running game, the ability to control the line of scrimmage? Tennessee still seems to be learning exactly what this Joe Milton guy's about. They're learning his game. I think he's learning his game, as you pointed out. Billy Bob Cooter said UT can roll the ball out and relax. These chickens are going to fold in the second half, just like at Georgia. Do you buy that at all?
I mean, you're talking about them folding. They lost 24-14 to a massively, massively talented Georgia team.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. Whether or not you think Shane Beamer is a good head coach, whether or not he has success, wins a championship, whatever his career is, his kids play hard for him. And that's not cliche. That's not cliche at all. Andy Mason Real Estate, over 4 decades combined experience in East Tennessee, best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. Go to andymasonrealestate.com. Best prices, best service in the best, andymasonrealestate.com. 2 minutes, and it is the one, the only Fred White, VFL, will join us. We'll break down the Tennessee South Carolina game. Hang tight, and it's Fred White. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, Caleb. That sounded horrible. Stay tuned.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We are grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place, with a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
There are a lot of things you may not know about this series, and we're going to connect with Fred White here momentarily. Let's go ahead and get into that before we're joined by Fred, as Fred will help us get a preview of the Tennessee South Carolina game, and also we'll get his thoughts on some prop bets. But you don't think of Tennessee South Carolina as having this intense history, but they actually do at times. And I still say, what was the guy's name with the long mullet hairdo? Help me on the message board. Was it Tannehill? Yes. That's still one of the most disliked players in the history of Tennessee football. There's no question in my mind. He was just not beloved whatsoever. So we'll get to that. Tannehill was right. What was his first name? Because now I think of Ryan Tannehill. The names run together. Steve Tannehill. That's right. SC Scout guy, as he was the guy. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety and great selection, strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD and Delta 9 products, or Delta products in general. And they have this, the Big Orange Crunch right there, which brings you that Sunday show with Fred, along with our friends at Herald Group Security Solutions, and also our post-game show. So if the Vols win, this is 50% off, and it's got the Delta 9 in it, so you'll love it, and you can order it from our friends at the Hemp House Chat, 2 T's, hemphousechat.com. And don't forget about the Hemp House. So SC Scout guy said, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He is a great high school coach in South Carolina now. I don't doubt that at all. And I think frankly, at the time, South Carolina, remember back that far, if you do, Caleb, that's the type of competent, cocky player that South Carolina needed to overcome some of the top teams in the SEC East and the SEC. So we want to get to prop bets. Let's go ahead and do that right now, as prop bets are brought to you by our friends at Zen Sports. I'll tell you more about Zen Sports here in just a moment, but it is 4 downs right now, and it's brought to you by our friends at Zen Sports. So 4 downs as we go right now.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, prop bets. And I love these things because it gives you a great feel for the game. And we will have our game prediction coming up here momentarily. By the way, Jimmy Himes picks Tennessee to win 38-34, so to not cover the spread, which I thought was a big number initially. As we get to 4 downs, it'll be Cooper Mays reminding us what you should do.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
You should. So let's go ahead and get to first down and break some of these down. And let's start with the guy who will have a monstrous impact on the game and had the biggest impact on the Columbia collapse for the Vols last year, and that was Spencer Rattler. Over under with him concerns what, Caleb? Because it is.
Coop here. First down.
There you go.
So Spencer Rattler is set at the over-under with 268.5 passing yards for the game. And for context, he's gone well over that 3 of the 4 games this year. The only one he didn't was Georgia, and he had 256 yards, and Georgia has historical talent in the secondary.
Yep.
So you're asking me if I'm taking the over or under?
Yeah, give me the number again.
268.5.
I think he'll throw for over 268.5. I think he'll have to. Yeah, I think it's an easy over. And I think that that'll either come because South Carolina plays well, which is scary for the Vols, or that'll come because he is in a trail position, which we have seen many times before. So what else we got? Prop bet number 2, which means it's what down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, what do we got?
All right, so we're looking at there's one where you can bet, will there be at least 4+ touchdowns in each half? And I'm going to say, yeah. I'm going to say each half there will be 4 total touchdowns at least.
So there have to be 8 touchdowns total, but they 4 individually have to be in a half. So you couldn't have a 5 and 3.
Right. You could not have a 5 and 3. And I'm like, okay, so if Tennessee is up 21-7 or South Carolina is up 21-7, that's 4 touchdowns. And then if one team's up big, there's going to be a lot of touchdowns in the second half by the other team trying to come back. I think this is an easy call. I mean, this is just 56 points.
Yeah, but this one's goofy to me because what if Tennessee gets the lead and their pass rushers are able to run free in the second half? This one's too complicated for me. I'm staying away from this one just because if the game were to get out of hand, if Tennessee plays as well as they can and Joe Milton has a big day, that seems really hard, especially, and on the message board, we're talking about offensive linemen that are out for South Carolina. It seems really difficult for me to think that you're going to have how many touchdowns in the second half?
Four total. Okay, what if Tennessee's up 35-0 at halftime, which probably isn't going to happen. Okay, don't worry. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But say hypothetically they're up big. Do you think the pass rushers are still able to play with the same level of intensity in the second half that they would need to get the sacks? I mean, I can't see Spencer Rattler not getting 3 to 4 touchdowns out of this. So,
but SC Scout guy who knows him well says we have 2 true freshmen starting on the offensive line, including our left tackle. I think
mean,
this
yeah.
thing could get really one-sided, and if it gets one-sided, maybe Spencer Rattler's throwing for his life in the second half, and any chance that South Carolina has to win. But
Well, there's hope for USC scout guy. Florida has horrible has horrible tackles too, and they don't have a mobile quarterback. But Tyler Barrett and James Pierce and Roman Harrison never got off the bus for that game. So,
well, they didn't. They didn't for whatever reason, and you're right. I mean, I can't argue with that. I don't think Tennessee's going to have two of those games back to back. At least I don't think so. I'm
staying away. Just before we move on, people are asking.
Yes.
I am staying away. I am staying away from 1.5 touchdowns by Spencer Rattler, just because it's one of those things where the way they play, like he'll get big plays in the secondary, but they may punch it in on the ground or with his legs when they get down to the goal line. I'm also staying away from Xavier Leggett's 84.5 receiving yards. Paper says that he should do that, but I will say that with what's his name? My mind's just going to Amari and Brown. He should be back in the game, and that should take some yards away from Leggett. So that's why I'm staying away from Leggett's yardage and Spencer Rattler's total touchdowns.
All right, there you go. It is brought to you. We've got a couple more downs to go. It is brought to you by our friends at Zen Sports. It's football season, and it's time to switch to Zen Sports, the fastest growing sports book in Tennessee, changing the bonus game with their cash rewards program. When you sign up for Zen Sports with a referral code HOOKED, HOOKED, earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back for your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. Think about that for a second. That's insane cash back. It's unbelievable. So you can get action on the Tennessee-South Carolina game this upcoming weekend. If you have friends who bet on sports, share your Zen Sports referral bonus code with them, and then you'll earn 3% of their betting volume for their first 6 months of betting on Zen Sports with no cap on how much you earn. What are you waiting for? Stop wasting your time and money on other schools when you could be earning real cash rewards with Zen Sports. Download today on the App Store or at zensports.com. Your wallet will thank you better. You basically are getting cash back on your bets, and with the referral code, cash back from your friends' bets as well. Download today. App Store is Zen Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and over and in Tennessee to bet. So are we on third down there, Caleb Calhoun?
We are.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Prop bet, third down. What do you got?
So third down, Squirrel White, over 51.5 receiving yards. I mean, what's his face for Mississippi State last week? I can't pronounce his first name, but Griffin had
the slot receiver they had that played so well.
Yeah, had 256 receiving yards. Come on. Squirrel White, he's going to do that. And also, I think I'm just going to call it. If we're out on Dante Thornton, I'm wondering if the coaches are out on Dante Thornton.
I wouldn't blame them with the drops. And, yeah, as somebody told me, he's really young. I don't
really lazy to me. But
I don't think they meant that in terms of age. I think they meant that in terms of maturity. And a lot of times immature people are lazy. I don't think they meant young as in check his birth certificate. I thought they meant young as in check his work ethic. And we're part of the problem, Caleb. We pumped Dante Thornton up a little bit too much. It took an injury for him to get on the field at Oregon. He had about 250 yards, a touchdown. Dante Thornton is not nearly the known commodity that Squirrel White is, and it's not even close. SC Scout Guy providing a little bit of insight too. Again, our best cornerback went out on the first play of the game. We had a true freshman covering that guy from MSU. O'Donnell Fortune is our best cornerback, is full go and will play in this game. Very true. I get all that. Jesse says, pardon me. Jesse says, White is good. He'll make some plays. The question is whether Milton can put the ball where it needs to be. I think Milton throws 2 picks, one trying to do too much and one on an errant pass. Well, he's only thrown 1 interception this year, which people have said.
That interception would have been a touchdown if Andre Carrick could block. I'm just going to say
yeah, but you don't put that ball in harm's way. You don't.
He was stepping. It wasn't in harm's way. I think it was Ramel Keaton had his guy beat wide open down the sideline. Milton was stepping into the throw, and he got hit as he threw it. I mean, that's on Carrick. Now maybe you could say Milton needs to step in a better spot in the pocket, but Carrick just got abused on that play. That interception is 100% on Andre Carrick.
I won't say 100%. I thought his pocket presence lacked a little bit in that, like you said. I won't say 100%, but I'll say Andre Carrick definitely deserved a half INT. But they don't put that on the stat chart yet for offensive linemen, so we'll have to roll with what we got. I thought that was a case where Joe Milton got a little bit too excited and saw that pass potentially open and was forcing it to get it there when you've got to step to your right and perhaps even just run the ball for 7 to 10 yards on that play, because I'm not disagreeing with you, because Carrick got blown up.
Well, I think he wanted to. Now, the truth is he should have stepped further back, but Heupel doesn't like 5-step drops. But the problem was that was just one of the plays of the game where Spraggins was beat a little bit, because Spraggins kind of collapsed. I don't know if it was Spraggins got beat or if the point was for him to collapse and Milton to step left. And he steps left and Carrick just gets absolutely obliterated.
Yep, he did. 4th down. Is that right, Cooper Mays? By the way, if you don't know and you don't watch the Vol Report, brought to you by Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, Cooper Mays was actually named after Cooper Manning because Cooper Mays' mom met Cooper Manning and was quite smitten with the name. And we'll just leave it at that. And by the way, the Vol.
What are you alluding to, Dave?
I've done all my alluding for now. The Vol Report with our own Jacob Warren is brought to you by our friends at Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, ccteyes.com. Look at me, no glasses, no contacts. They got LASIK. They have also fantastic cataract surgery and the regular eye appointments. And the other great thing about them is that they're local and they care about you. 4th down, Coop.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Coop, by the way, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. cityheatandair.com, not a fly-by-night HVAC unit. They are absolutely there to make sure that you get the right assessment on your unit. What is 4th down on our prop bets, Coop? I'm sorry, Caleb.
Oh, okay. So Brew McCoy over 48.5 receiving yards. Every go-to wideout, like physical wideout, has gone for over 65 yards against South Carolina in the season. Even last week, when Mississippi State slot receiver was out there getting 256, their go-to wideout, who I think his name was Justin Ross, had 91 yards. So Brew McCoy is the go-to wideout, more so than Ramel Keaton. He is physically hard to guard. So I think he goes over 48.5 receiving yards fairly comfortably.
All right. I can roll with that. I've heard this said a lot of times, and I want to address it, and I want to dive into it right now. And it is officially what the H?
Say wham.
Oh, there we go.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
What the H? Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler. Look for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? Go to rickterryjewelry.com. Those Fire Opals are affordable and they're orange, and they would look great on your loved one for the holiday season. Halloween just around the corner. But anyway, they would look absolutely fantastic, the Fire Opal. So here's my what the H, because I heard this from the community, and I'm going to insert this here and tell me if you've heard the same thing and you've seen this on message boards, that this game is somehow monstrously bigger for Tennessee than it is South Carolina. I don't think that's true. I think it's monstrously big for college football and one of their better stories in Tennessee. But this game's every bit as big for South Carolina as it is for Tennessee. Tell me I'm wrong. Because, Caleb, I just think that South Carolina still, despite what they have done, I am telling you that I believe firmly that this Tennessee football team and this South Carolina football team with a win, they have a different type of season. With South Carolina, it might be from a good season to a New Year's Day Bowl. With Tennessee, it could even be potentially from a New Year's Day Bowl to being in the college football playoff conversation. But for different reasons, I think it's every bit as big for South Carolina as it is for Tennessee.
It is. And this game, and Tennessee fan, like, this has South Carolina has Tennessee's almost been a measuring stick for them for the past 10, 12, 13, 14 years. And Tennessee fans don't want to admit this because they like to think they have bigger fish to fry in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. But South Carolina has been the bellwether game for Tennessee the past 15 years, Dave. And it's really not even close. That is the bellwether game for Tennessee. And it's honestly the bellwether game for South Carolina. And you don't want to admit that, but the programs are roughly on the same level at this point. And so...
And you mentioned before how big this is for recruiting. Well, if it's big in recruiting, it's as big for South Carolina as it is for Tennessee.
Yeah, and also with Clemson fading, guess what? Tennessee can't just – we talk about Tennessee cashing in. Well, South Carolina can cash in on that too. And if South Carolina ices out Tennessee, guess who has their pick of the litter in the state of South Carolina? Which, Dave, as you know, has great football.
True. SC Scout guy pointed out Tennessee is only 11-9 against South Carolina in the last 20 years. That's a team they used to dominate. That's a pretty stunning stat. And you go back into the day when the 98 team, by the way, you can order the Celebrate 98 book autographed by me. And all you have to do is click right below, place your order, hardcover, soft cover, and already gotten some great reviews, and I'm blessed, and thank you so much. But let's remember that Celebrate 98 team had a guy named Jim Donnan, who was not a great coach at South Carolina. Had a guy at times
he was at Georgia.
Had a guy named Brad Scott at South Carolina. Did have a guy named Steve Spurrier, and that's what it was. Had a bunch of Mikes at Alabama, and really their schedule was significantly easier, and that is why
Jerry DiNardo at LSU, which allowed them to go to LSU.
Jerry DiNardo at LSU, that's a great one. Tennessee hasn't had great success recruiting there, but if you look at the states that they recruited in particular Georgia with Donnan and South Carolina with Brad Scott, they're going to out-recruit them, and they were going to out-recruit a 89-year-old Lou Holtz at the time too. Jesse, adding on to that thought, says that Heupel has about a dozen top prospects in Knoxville this weekend, and some are hard South Carolina leans, pushing all his chips into one pile. And I agree with that. Heupel's done it before, probably burned him with a guy named Mazeo Bennett last year.
Well, yeah. Well, Mazeo committed after the Alabama game. It was just losing to South Carolina did it in for Tennessee, which I kind of wanted to get to this because 2012 to 2018, every Tennessee-South Carolina game was decided by one score, every single one. And I think it was like within 4 points every single game from 2012 to 2018 during that time. Guys, there have been 3. Last year was the 3rd major upset that derailed one of the team's seasons. We know South Carolina beating Tennessee last year, what that did to Tennessee. Well, 10 years ago, Dave, it's funny, you compare Shane Beamer to Butch Jones and you compare Josh Heupel to Steve Spurrier. You've said Shane Beamer is the new Butch Jones and Josh Heupel is the new Steve Spurrier, right?
I have said that.
Well, 10 years ago, the greatest team in South Carolina history, led by Steve Spurrier, went 11-2. One of their losses was to Tennessee's first team under Butch Jones, which went 5-7. By the way, if South Carolina wins that game, they go play for the SEC title. And I'm just going to say it up front. They might beat Auburn because Auburn was the luckiest team in the history of college football that year. And they were not that good. They were lucky to get to the national title game. South Carolina could have beaten Auburn, and they might have played for the national title that year. But Tennessee upset them with Butch Jones. And then the most notable one. Sorry?
No, you go right ahead.
The most notable one is 1992. South Carolina SEC newcomer. All Tennessee has to do is beat South Carolina, and they go play for the SEC title, which was in Birmingham that year. They lose to a not very good South Carolina team its first year in the SEC, and Tannehill, I guess is how you pronounce his name at the time, 24-23. That didn't just cost Tennessee the East. It cost Johnny Majors his job. So totally altered the future of Tennessee football.
Yeah, and you wrote about some of the big games in this series, and I can tell you from being in school and knowing the players, there's nobody they hated more than Tannehill. Daniel says, for me personally, this has become more of a rivalry than the big three in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. I'm not willing to go that far because of historical significance, but it is, I believe, getting into the conversation, especially if you don't play Georgia or Florida on an annual basis, and it looks as if that's going to be the case.
South Carolina has been competitive with Tennessee longer than Tennessee has been competitive with any of those teams. I'm sorry. It's just a fact.
Say that again. That didn't.
Since the SEC split into two divisions in 1992, South Carolina has been competitive with Tennessee longer than Tennessee has been competitive with any of those three teams. I mean, I'm just going to say that.
Hadn't thought of it that way. This is why Jesse, I think, likes you. It's refreshing to hear some honesty. And this isn't a Tennessee football team that, going into last year's game, what did we say? Tennessee would absolutely have to flub it up to get beat by South Carolina. I thought we were half right, Caleb. I think that they did have to flub it up, and they did with the Jeremy Banks situation before the game. And then they didn't play well during the game, and then Hendon Hooker got hurt. That's a flub up, but I mean, that's not their fault. But let's not shortchange South Carolina for coming out and being ready to play. I mean, there's no question they're ready to go.
Yeah, they, as Shea acknowledged, they simplified things for Spencer Rattler. They turned him loose. They unleashed him, and he went off. And honestly, since that game, Spencer Rattler hasn't played a bad game since that Tennessee game. I mean,
and Jesse adding also, Beamer and Heupel are great for the SEC. Totally agree. And kudos to Shane Beamer, who, listen, before the Tennessee game last year, wasn't on the hot seat, but I thought would be in the hot seat going into the 2023 season. But he got things turned around with South Carolina. Did he misuse Spencer Rattler headed for back before the Tennessee game and the Clemson game? Maybe. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter. They got it fixed. Tennessee once switched midseason from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and after starting 0-6, they won all of their remaining games. They got it fixed. So that's better than just going status quo, running the same old offense and saying, hey, let's just hope that things suddenly start to get better. Because what's the old saying? If you continue to do things,
insanity is doing everything the same way and expecting a different result.
Exactly. It was much better.
And well, having studied a little history of the 88 team, Dave, you may know this more than me, but that was Johnny Majors was kind of a micromanager of Tennessee, had his hands very much on the program and what they were doing up until that point. It was very much it was kind of a Nick Saban where it was his schemes. He let the coordinators do their thing, but he was a bit of a micromanager. When he made the move to Philip Fulmer as offensive coordinator, which was 89, and I guess it would have been Larry Lacewell in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
That was when Majors finally became hands off. And my understanding from a lot of people, and you may know more than me, but in 1992, even before the open heart surgery or anything like that, it just felt like the staff was really coaching the team anyway. And Majors was just there. And
yep.
I think that's why it was easier to make the move.
Any other noteworthy games? You've got a column on offthehooksports.com that really looks at this series. Any other noteworthy games that you want to mention?
Yeah, sure. Two. 2014, Josh Dobbs breakout game. Tennessee was down 45-31 with 3 minutes left, and they scored 2 touchdowns in 3 minutes, win in overtime. Dobbs has 5 total touchdowns, over 400 total yards. Spurrier in his post-game press conference gives a quick statement, and he's like, and that's it. I don't think I need to answer any questions, and walks out. He was so mad. 2016, that began the dumpster fire of Butch Jones' career. Tennessee starts out 5-0. They lose 2 straight, but they were expected to lose those 2. They're still favored to win the East, and they do win the East if they win out. But they get shocked by South Carolina because Josh Dobbs, the aerospace engineer, had a midterm that week and wasn't able to prepare for the South Carolina game and did not play well. They play horribly. Jalen Hurd transfers that week after, and then Florida clinches the East, and Butch Jones makes his Champions of Life comment. And that's really when that South Carolina loss is right when Butch Jones started to completely unravel. And and meltdown.
When I look at the message board, we use the term rival loosely, don't we? I mean, we just kind of throw it out there. We say Vanderbilt's a rival. I mean, how in the world that's a rival, and other than they're within the state borders? Jesse says Tennessee, Georgia, and Clemson are the biggest rivals for South Carolina, in my opinion, due to recruiting. South Carolina is pushing a boulder uphill when it comes to recruiting. These games are huge. And then from SC Scout Guy, Georgia and Clemson are actual rivals. I don't consider Tennessee a rival because we never really played them much before we joined the SEC. That's true. But here's the thing to remember. Tennessee has always been one of those schools that has multiple rivals. If you're over 70, it's Vanderbilt. If you're 55 to 60, it's Alabama. If you're 40 to 55, it's Florida. Maybe for this generation, if something crazy happens, it might be South Carolina. Who are the three permanent opponents that Tennessee's reportedly going to play if they go that direction?
My understanding is they're going to do South Carolina, Georgia. I mean, not Georgia. South Carolina, Alabama, and Vanderbilt. So I think South Carolina is going to be on that list.
Well, I will go ahead and tell you then South Carolina will be on that list. That will be a rivalry. You have some neat stories with the black jerseys and all that sort of thing. I mean, to me, it's not Bama, Florida, or even Georgia. But 10 years from now, Caleb, when we're having this conversation, I think it very well could be one of Tennessee's top rivals. And again, I go back to recruiting. Who remembers this? And I may have said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Tennessee's entire starting defensive line on the 98 national championship team was from the Carolinas and South Carolina. Tennessee has had Montario Hardesty was a Albert Hainsworth left the field, giving the South Carolina student section the one finger salute as Tennessee athletic director Bud Ford was trying to pull him off the field. So if it's not a rivalry, it's pretty darn close. But maybe that's just the SEC as a whole. Sports Treasures covering over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. They're dropping stuff all the time on Facebook. So just go and follow sportstreasurestn.com, sportstreasurestn.com. Maybe instead of just trying to wedge in the R word as we do, Smoky Mountain Red says it yes. He says it best. He says this game is gaining in importance year after year. And if they turn out to be permanent opponents, that's certainly going to be the case. Jay Phillips knows South Carolina like nobody else. He is the man. He joined us in SEC Media Days, and I'm telling you, he will be able to break it down for you. So we look forward to talk to Jay Phillips on 107.5 The Zone. We'll get a breakdown of the Gamecocks, Tennessee, South Carolina. It is a Football Friday brought to you in part by Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT, that's HAT, to receive some free swag with your cider order, available most anywhere in the U.S. tncidercompany.com, tncidercompany.com. 90 seconds, great breakdown with Jay Phillips after this.
Candace, I was really heavy into the drug culture. I was selling drugs. I was just constantly in pain. I was missing like a good support system in my life. Candace has given me everything that I need in order to successfully have a wonderful recovery, in order to have a life that I didn't even know was possible. And it's not just about me anymore, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
All righty, here we go. Let's go ahead and bring him in on our Apex Apparel Group hotline. Design, brand, market your way. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. They printed up our Hooker t-shirts, Off the Hook Sports t-shirts. And if you order one of my books, Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship, it's right below. You can order it. And for this week, for Champions Week, which celebrates the 98 team and basically everybody else that has won a championship, then you can you get a free t-shirt with that for this week only. And that is apexapparelgroup.com. So it is time to talk with our very special guest who knows South Carolina, I mean, as well as anybody. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. Jay Phillips joins us now with 107.5 in Columbia. Jay, I think, just got his run in. Jay, you look fantastic, slim. You're taking care of yourself. Way to go, my man.
Thank you. I do what I can. Can y'all hear me okay? I am a little nervous about that. Is everything sounding good?
You sound golden. You are perfect.
Just want to be absolutely sure. Yeah, I do what I can. I'm an old man, Dave. I gotta stay. I still have 4 kids to raise, so I gotta look the part. You know what I'm saying?
My 2 are at college, and I got one word for you: glorious.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I have 3 in college now. So
okay.
1 in high school, but no, we're getting along, man. I'm looking forward to this one tomorrow night. I love this rivalry. I heard you guys just a few minutes ago talking about that. It doesn't feel like one of those Georgia-Auburn kind of things, right? Or even what Tennessee does. Certainly, not the Alabama rivalry, but like even Tennessee-Florida. But over I saw a breakdown of it a minute ago, and I forget how many years. I want to say last 15, 20 years. 2 points separate these teams. In the last 20 games, it's 11-9 in favor of Tennessee. 3 of them have gone to overtime. I'm going to miss it next year. I'm like you, Carolina fans don't want to see the Georgia game go away either. Both Tennessee and Georgia roll off the new schedule next season. I hope it's a one-off. But this has become just a really big, pivotal game, I think, for both of these teams. And certainly, despite the excitement from Carolina fans last year over what happened here in Columbia, that was an anomaly. This thing is a lot tighter than what last year would ever have suggested.
It is. And going back to last year, how stunned were you by that game? We learned that Tennessee had some in-house fighting afterwards, but we didn't know that going into the game. Tennessee was supposed to show up and roll and be in the college football playoff conversation for another month.
Well, and remember, Carolina had just come off a debacle down in Gainesville.
Yeah.
It was, you went, I mean, seriously, man, you talk about one of life's moments where you go from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs in an 8-day period. And South Carolina football did. Everybody was surprised. I don't care if you are the most ardent, subjective, unknowledgeable Gamecock fan on planet Earth. You didn't see South Carolina doing that to Tennessee last year. And remember too, y'all, Carolina got up big and then Tennessee made it 35-31. And at that point you're like, oh, okay, well now we've got the game on our hands. And then boom, South Carolina just went right back at it and ended up winning quite comfortably. And I know Hendon went down late and that made some difference, but I think by then, even if you got Hendon Hooker playing at an even higher level than he was playing last season, playing at a Cam Newton level, I don't know if there's enough time for Tennessee to come all the way back. But No, that was big. And then they carried some of that into the Clemson game, which was, good for Carolina fans who had not won in Clemson in 10 years, to be able to go do that. I think, Dave, you can really look at that depending on how things go in the future, not just tomorrow night, but the rest of the season, maybe even into next year. You can really look at that game last year against the Vols and say that was where Shane Beamer took control of this team fully. For the, not for the first time, but really just grabbed hold of it, told Marcus Satterfield. I was joking. I'll give you this. I was joking with my co-host a little bit earlier. And I don't mean to pick on Marcus, but it is what it is. Okay. Marcus had a room full of toys like any little kid, right? You got your Play-Doh over here and your Legos and your Star Wars figures and your Lincoln Logs and your toy trucks. And you got your video games that flash. And Marcus was intrigued by all of them, but he could never really focus on one of them. And Shane, being his dad, said, Marcus, you now have your toy trucks and your Lincoln Logs. Go have fun. And that's what they did. It's just Marcus was wanting to just call every play in the book far too often last year. And Shane, little by little, was whittling that playbook down, making Spencer comfortable, getting guys involved, to where the plays they were being asked to run were the plays they knew how to run in practice over and over and over again. And they just picked Tennessee apart. And I don't know how much Tennessee came into that game last year going, hey, it's South Carolina. We're really good. They just got their butt kicked in Gainesville. We'll be fine. So I think some of that played into it as well. But, that was a pivotal moment for the Gamecocks. There's no question about that.
Well, and I want to say this too. We can talk about the Jeremy Banks situation, and we can talk about Tennessee didn't show up with their best game and the Hendon Hooker injury, but South Carolina deserves as much credit as Tennessee deserves blame for that game, Caleb.
Yeah, Jay, I want to look at this year because, since that South Carolina game, Spencer Rattler hasn't really he hasn't looked like the Spencer Rattler before that game. Even though South Carolina's 2-2 this year, I've been saying every guest we've had on this week, and we all agree that Spencer Rattler is head and shoulders better than every other quarterback in the SEC. And I don't think there's a close second. What are some of the other personnel issues with South Carolina, though? Because I know there were some injuries on the offensive line. Secondary has struggled, but we have learned that they got banged up at cornerback last week, and they should be healthier this week. Is this the healthiest South Carolina's been all year going into this week?
Other than game one, yeah. And you've got issues, losing Mo Kaba at linebacker, Caleb, was a blow. The biggest concern I have really across the board, and a lot of schools have this, but it's the second level depth. You look at that secondary last week, that surprised me. Look, let me back up a little and I'll give y'all where I'm going with this, but I was really surprised in doing my homework for the Mississippi State game to see how little they wanted to depend on Will Rogers, who, was top 10 in the league historically in passing yardage. By the way, the other night against South Carolina moved into third all time in the SEC. Why aren't you using this guy? And they did want to run the ball. I can appreciate a coaching change and a philosophical change, whether they ever wanted it or not. The secondary got torched, but they did make adjustments late. Tulu Griffin had just a monumental first half, but if you only had 50-something yards in the second half because you had 200 in the first, you've done a lot better job, right? But depth back there, Caleb, that really concerns me. And if guys go down or when guys need a spell, who's back there? And I do think that's something Josh Heupel is absolutely going to be looking at tomorrow night. All coaches exploit the weakness, right? The good news, though, is that South Carolina up front on the defensive line in the last 2 weeks, including the loss at Georgia, has played really well. You've had 2 straight defensive linemen of the week in the league, TJ Sanders in Athens, Alex Huntley against Mississippi State. They both had big numbers. They're both also getting those, what I like to call PFF numbers. They might not be, they might not be the stat numbers, sacks and tackles for loss, but the disruption rate, things like that. So they're playing much, much better, but I just across the board, it's the depth, and with the way Tennessee likes to play football, they like to go fast. They don't want you to be able to substitute on defense. Guys eventually need a break. And if they're out there too long, that's tough. Or when they do need a break, who comes in? How good are they? How ready are they? I think they're good. Are they ready? Those are my bigger concerns for Carolina. But health-wise, defensively, it's pretty good. Again, you've lost Mo Kaba for the season. But other than that, they've got their complement. I just go back to that second level ability over the long haul to make a difference for the Gamecocks. And then on offense, the only major piece that's still out, and it's a major piece, is Juice Wells at receiver. But my goodness, Xavier Legette has more than made up for Juice's absence, and he should be back for the Florida game in 2 weeks. But otherwise, they're pretty healthy.
Jay Phillips with 107.5 in Columbia. He covers the South Carolina Gamecocks. You can follow him at Jay Phillips 107.5. So South Carolina has had issues in the secondary. Tennessee knows all about that. And I think we've kind of gone from over the past, let's say 2 years, we have gone from Tennessee, it doesn't have the overall depth, the overall amount of players in the secondary, to Tennessee's offense puts all kinds of heat on their secondary because of their tempo that they run. So now here's where we're settled, Jay. They're just not very good. I mean, they're just not. I mean, I hate to sound mean, but they're just not very good football players. And I think that's kind of where Tennessee is. Is that too mean, Caleb? Caleb gave me a look.
No. I had a crick in the neck. I totally agree with you with the secondary.
What is, because South Carolina is not only last in the SEC, but last by about 40 yards passing per game. What are their issues in the secondary?
South Carolina's, you mean?
Yes.
Again, depth. I think I was surprised at just how easily Will Rogers was able to pick them apart last week. And again, I think they clamped down a little bit better late in the game. The Gamecocks were able, the term I've been using on my show all week was they've been able to, or they were able rather to keep State at arm's length. They're just, might be the same thing, Dave. You've got guys in Cam Smith and Marcellus Dial that went to the NFL, and there were not like for like replacements for those two going into this season. And so when you've got to have guys learn on the fly, I like what O'Donnell Fortune can do. But and again, Dial is solid, but for a guy who's been around a while, he's good. He's not great. Warry and Smith got beat a few times at safety, and those were freshman All-America types last year, still coming along. You can you can exploit their weaknesses when you need to, but you might be on the same kind of line there. I think when you lose NFL dudes and don't replace them with NFL dudes the way a Georgia, Alabama, and LSU do, there's a drop-off, right? Until you develop those guys into NFL types. And I'm not expert enough to tell you where Fortune and Dial may lay this year relative to those guys last year.
Great point. I want to get your prediction. I want to get Caleb's prediction as well. We know the spread is around 11. Our predictions brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer one school at a time. If there are private schools right now, go to your administrator and say, I want you to know about Herald Group Security Solutions, and you need to give them a call. We're going to get them in public schools soon, but for now, we're going to try to avoid all the tragedies we can that we've heard so much about with school incidents. So it's heraldgrp.com. These guys are highly trained, heraldgrp.com. They are more than just security guards. Most have served in the armed forces as well. Jay, what is your prediction in the game? How do you see this thing shaking out?
So I am asked every week to do a prediction for one of the local fan sites, the On3 site, Gamecock Central. And I just did it about, what time is it here? I did about 2 hours ago.
Perfect timing.
I don't know how much of my subjectivity is involved here because I really, Dave, you've known me a long time. I attempt to not be that guy. I think the spread is way too high.
Oh, I agree.
I don't get it. And I'm not one of those. Let me preface this. I'm not one of those, when a spread is too big, oh, that's disrespectful. I can't believe they would do that to my team. Look, it's not my team. Yes, I went to South Carolina, but I have learned how to do what I do for a living. Vegas doesn't care. Vegas doesn't care about respect or disrespect. Vegas sets a number to make you part with your money, right? Like, we know that's what it is. But that said, I look at these two teams. South Carolina's played the number 1 team in the country. They played another top 20 team. They played a okay other conference team in Mississippi State. And yeah, you played Furman. I think South Carolina has, as a body of work, has played much tougher competition than Tennessee. Tennessee's numbers are gaudy, but Tennessee's played what I consider one strong team, and that was the loss at Florida, where I thought Florida was much better. So I think South Carolina keeps this close. I picked South Carolina 30-27. I don't know how realistic that is, because I could also see where this game is maybe, say, Tennessee 27-24 late. They get the ball, they go score a touchdown, they win by double digits. And while it might not quite be that 11 or 12 that we're looking at right now, they do basically what the line had sort of lent towards. I just think South Carolina got better the last 2 weeks, guys, and against better teams than what Tennessee has seen. I know what Heupel can do. I like Milton, but I don't love Milton. I like the fact that Tennessee's got a nice trio of backs, so I think that keeps their run game fresh. That concerns me the most, by the way. But I think this game is tighter, and if Spencer does what Spencer's been doing, and every other trend continues moderately upward for the Gamecocks, I think they can win this game.
Jesse says, before I get to Caleb's prediction, because I want to address this, spread is high because early season models are garbage. Only a human being that understands the game can watch them and tell you which team is good and which is bad. Stats this early tell us nothing. True. I think the spread's this high because Vegas has insiders on every significant school, and I think they think that Cooper Mays is going to play Tennessee center, who has been out the entire season. There was 2 schools of thought, hold him out for a little bit longer so he gets the off week. But I think that's what Vegas thinks. I don't know that. I'm not reporting that. Goodness knows I don't want to get in trouble with that. We have the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning on our channel. But that's my theory, is why the number is that high.
With you on the insider part, man. They always know something, Dave. Right? They always know something. And again, I know lines aren't predictions, but it continues to surprise me that it's that big, and certainly won't be surprised if Tennessee wins this football game. And I'll be honest with you, the strength of my prediction is about as strong perhaps as a wet Kleenex, but there's just something about how Carolina has looked against better teams that gives me the opinion that they can go get this done. But if it gets away early, I think about 2 years ago, guys, Carolina 7-0 Tennessee. Carolina's on the 1-yard line, decides a trick play instead of giving it to a running back with 4 opportunities to score and make it a tie game. Tennessee goes right back down the field, 14-0, and before you knew it, the game was over. Something like that happens again, no pun intended, all bets are off.
Jay, have a blessed day. 107.5. And I heard that you in Columbia, I've heard you said some nice things about us to go over and listen to learn about Tennessee. I appreciate that, man. I really do.
We've known each other a long time, dude. You're great at what you do, man. All real.
We've known each other for like 25 years, but we met when we were 5. So we're both almost 30. So great job, Jay. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you, buddy. See you, Caleb.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Caleb. So what is your prediction? I'll go ahead and tell you. I've got Tennessee winning this game 30-23. It's not a game I would touch because I wouldn't be surprised if there's a late touchdown in which they cover. But I think the number is just way too high still. And I'm surprised it hasn't come a little bit down. It got up to 12.5 and is settling at about 11. Is that right?
Yeah, at 11.5. I'm not betting against Vegas. I think they're trying to bait people to take South Carolina on the line because they know something we don't, which has me going, I'm going to say something like 41-27. Tennessee wins. I think they get a late touchdown like he was talking about, like Jay was talking about, and that hits the over, and that's cover for Tennessee. Most models, I checked every model yesterday. Most models give Tennessee a roughly 65% chance to cover the spread. Not to win. They have an 80.4% chance of winning. They have a 65% chance of covering the spread, according to most models. That's based on everything we know about these teams. This is not based on preseason models, guys, because we've already had a full month of football played. And I think largely what my guess is, it's not really about Cooper Mays anymore, because even if he's healthy and good to go, you wonder if there's going to be some rust. South Carolina is very excited about some players coming back. I think Vegas has some insiders saying that they're not as healthy as they might seem. Even though they're coming back, they're not fully healthy.
We can debate whether or not this is a rivalry, but there have been some historical performances for Tennessee in the South Carolina game. And you can go all the way back to 1929, Caleb. That was a pretty historical performance by a pretty incredible player in Tennessee football history.
Correct. There's been quite a few. So 1929, Tennessee played South Carolina. Gene McKeever had 5 touchdowns. By the way, not 5 throwing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, a record that still stands to this day for Tennessee in a game. Nobody has carried the ball into the end zone 5 times, whether it be receiving or rushing or combination, in Tennessee football history. He would have won the Heisman that year if the Heisman existed. So the Heisman curse for Tennessee goes back to 1929, where the
Heisman curse existed before the Heisman existed.
It did, because the year there was no debate that he was the best player in football that year. There was no debate. He would have won the Heisman. So Gene McKeever getting 5 touchdowns started a trend of Tennessee football players really making history with their performances against South Carolina.
All right, fair enough. Now, let me ask you this. You've got the T. Martin game in there. I was at that game. He set the record for consecutive completions. I thought a lot of those were swing passes, screens, easy passes used to get that record that they thought would be good for T, who was viewed as a running quarterback after Peyton Manning. I kind of thought that was a lot like Brett Favre just laying down on the ground and getting sacked by Michael Strahan to get the sack record. To me, that was one of the most hollow records that I've ever seen or been a part of.
Dave, I think you're short selling T. Martin.
Okay.
I think when he was pursuing the record, I think like once he hit like 10 for 10 or 15 to 15, yes, at that point, the last like 10 passes, they were doing that because they were blowing out South Carolina and they could. I don't think they started the game doing that. And here's the numbers. T. Martin's 23 of 24 in that game for 315 yards. That's over 10 yards an attempt. That's over, if I'm getting my math right, that's over 12 yards an attempt. Now, if your theory held, then he would have had like 6 or 7 yards an attempt. But he averaged over 12 yards an attempt.
Just watching that game towards the end, it looked like they wanted to get him the record. Now, it doesn't change how I feel about T. Martin. I think that T. Martin was a great, great college quarterback.
No, I agree. At the end, and Martin admitted it as much. He talked about that David Cutcliffe called a screen pass that made no sense for him to get the record. That part's true. But Dave, for him to be approaching the record, they weren't doing that when he was approaching the record. They decided that when they realized he was getting close to the record. But before that, there was a lot more vertical passes. I think, again, the game. You think they went into that game in the first 5 passes in the first quarter? They're like, oh, he's going to break this record. Let's do it.
No, but I thought there was a clear moment that I can't remember exactly when it was. Maybe it was mid third quarter, maybe it was late third quarter. I thought that was a clear moment where they were going to make sure that he got the record. And then
that's fine, but to that point, he was averaging over 12 and a half yards an attempt.
I agree. It's like you get 2 aces and you split them and you double down and you split them again. I mean, it fell into their lap and it worked out for them. The other one that you point out, as far as historical performances that Tennessee should remember against South Carolina, is by a guy named Josh Dobbs, who just got his first win in the NFL, and Dobbs was money on that day. 23 of 40 for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception as Tennessee beat South Carolina 45-42. maybe they would have been better off losing this game so that people saw Butch Jones for what he really is. But give Josh Dobbs credit. He doesn't think like that. He also ran for 166 yards on 24 carries. That was an all Dobbs all game, and 3 touchdowns. That was an all Dobbs all game.
Yeah, he had 5 total touchdowns and 467 total yards. I believe this was the first ever 300, 100-yard game ever by a Tennessee quarterback, and Dobbs actually did that like 4 more times. Hendon Hooker did it, I think, once or twice, but Dobbs has like 4 or 5 of those games on his resume, 300, 100 games, and I'm saying 300 passing, 100 rushing.
Then you got Dustin Colquitt in 2003. I was at that game. What did Dustin Colquitt do in 2003? I don't even remember.
Oh, he averaged. This was a really ugly game for Tennessee. They won 23-20 in overtime on a fade pass from Clausen to James Banks. There's a rumor that when they shook hands in midfield, there was no proof of this, but there was a rumor that Philip Fulmer told Lou Holtz you should have won that game. But I don't know if that's true. But
yeah, and Lou Holtz responded, "Well, suffer and succotash, that's your pride."
But Dustin Colquitt averaged. He averaged 51.7 yards per punt on that game on 7 punts. The only reason it got to overtime was because Tennessee dominated field position. He had 5 50-yarders. He had a 63-yarder that went out of bounds at the South Carolina 2. Their average starting field position was on their own 12-yard line. It's the greatest game ever. There's 2 games that I can say a punter won the game for Tennessee. One is South Carolina. The other one was later that year, Dave, Miami. Dustin Colquitt won that Miami game by himself. He was the MVP.
Yeah, fair.
That punt to Sean Taylor was the greatest punt of all time that Taylor fumbled.
Yeah. Smoky Mountain Red said, did you say no one had 5 TDs rushing and receiving or just running in the game? What was that stat you threw out there?
No one had 5 TDs rushing or receiving or a combination of the 2 in Tennessee history outside of Gene McKeever in 1929. So basically carried the ball in the end zone 5 times. That's the way I looked at it. No one carried the ball into the end zone 5 times.
So not passing is what you're...
Yeah, not passing.
Okay.
Think about it in fantasy. You get more points if you carry it into the end zone than if you throw for it.
Has anybody else done that since?
No one's done that since for Tennessee.
Wow. Good stuff. All right. He's Caleb Calhoun, and I trust him on that. I'd probably look it up after the show with anybody but him. But if he says it, I certainly believe it. So we will have that the big wrap. That'll be brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions after the game. We'll also have that.
Wait. Jalen Hyatt last year.
Jalen Hyatt last year. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Jalen Hyatt last year. Excuse me. That was the first one since. So
okay.
My significant apologies on my end. I don't know how I forgot that one.
We always overlook Jalen Hyatt is what we did. And we'll also have, so we got the big wrap brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions. And we'll also have that Sunday show with Fred brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time. And I'm telling you, they'll do that. We're talking about highly trained security individuals that will make schools safer. We're going to get these in public schools. So if your child or daughter, or your son or daughter, your child goes to a private school, have them reach out to Herald Group Security Solutions. We've already made a difference. We're going to continue to do that. And we're going to avoid some of the tragedies that we've seen across our country. And also, I remind you, the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. They also have the Big Orange Crunch. Tennessee wins. They'll be 50% off on Sunday, and you can get 10% off just by using the promo code HOOKED. Support our sponsors. Again, it's Champions Week, so anybody that purchased the book, which is right below Celebrate 98, the Untold Stories of the 1998 National Champion Tennessee Vols, will get a free Off the Hook Sports t-shirt. And I'm here to tell you, it is not a rehashing of the season. It is stories that you haven't heard before, and I think you'll greatly appreciate it. So unless you were on that team, 90% of that book is stuff that you did not know. And I think that you will you will appreciate that book. I certainly hope so. The reviews coming back have, quite frankly, made me a little bit swollen up at times, a little bit humbled, and I greatly appreciate that you guys have enjoyed the book. And if you can, we would love for you to order it on offthehooksports.com because I can sign it for you and ship it to you directly. Because I'll be frank with you, Amazon takes all the money. But if you can leave a review on Amazon, that helps us get us out there. So Caleb, will you promise me you'll leave a review, even though I don't think you've read the book yet?
I will absolutely leave a review. You were supposed to send me a copy, Dave.
I'm going to send you a copy. You are on the list with Philip Fulmer. So that's an exclusive list of people I've got to send a copy of the book to. We got a lot going on. We got a lot going on.
We got a lot of work going on right now, guys.
Yeah, I know. The book was supposed to come out in May, but I had a little health issue, so it came out when it came out, and that's where we are. It's Celebrate 98. Order the book, and you'll love it. If you don't, you can get on this message board and just rip me to no end every day, and I'll never ever block you. How about that? I'm that sure you'll like the book. You can say Dave's fat, Dave's an idiot, Dave's stupid, Dave has a big head, Dave's eyes are too close together, he's got wrinkles. You can do whatever you want to. And
Dave thinks Nashville talent is still good. Sorry.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. So we both have Tennessee winning, but not covering.
I got them covering.
Nope, I got them covering with a late score. Okay, I've got them not covering.
I'm going to roll out a bottle of Gentleman's Jack on the show next week when this happens.
There you go. We'll break it out at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the